by show of hands, how many people in the audience have been to a zoo before? Okay, so pretty much all of us, right? As a kid, I always remember enjoying visits to the zoo and seeing so many different species of animals up close and personal. However, up until recently, I had no idea that what I was witnessing in zoos was not an accurate representation of the natural lives of these animals. Further, the artificial environments created by zoos are detrimental to an animal's health and well-being, and the negative side effects are practically irreversible. Instead of confining animals in zoos for a viewing pleasure, they should be allowed to stay in their wild habitats with the help of people everywhere, people like you and me. To begin, the dictionary definition of a zoo is a park where wild animals are kept for exhibition. But the real question is, what is the purpose of this? If it is solely just for our viewing pleasure, we need to reconsider. Worldwide, the United States is the only country that requires its zoos to be certified. The American Zoo and Aquarium Association accredits legitimate organizations who take proper care of their animals. This would seem to address any problems of mistreatment. However, according to Lisa B. Weisberg of the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, only 183 of 2,000 licensed zoos are AZA accredited. If the vast majority of zoos are not even licensed, the likelihood of inadequate care is enormous and frightening. In the wild, animals typically seen in zoos have almost endless places to roam and often use large spaces within the herd dynamics. Some species migrate thousands of miles every year, and animals like elephants travel in herds over vast expanses of land. Additionally, environment affects animal behavior, and wild animals rely on a particular climate for survival. Seasons change at different latitudes and longitudes of the Earth, which directly affects seasons, temperature, daylight time, availability of food, and the reproduction cycles of species. Organisms in their natural states develop routines without the confines of a cage, and when in confinement, develop diseases that they would not have originally. The International Zoo Yearbook lists 118 transmissible diseases in zoos, with about 29 of those resulting from environmental changes from one habitat to another. For example, chin-strap penguins, seen in this slide, suffer from a parasite that is not even native to their Antarctica home. The environmental changes animals have to adjust to when transitioning to a foreign environment often have a negative impact on an animal's health. Just this past year, in the Oklahoma City Zoo, a young elephant was found dead in one of the exhibits. She had just been moved from a zoo in Seattle. In a couple weeks, she lost 1,000 pounds and developed an infection because the signs of her illnesses went untreated. Outside of America, animals suffer in zoos across the world. In the Giza Zoo in Egypt, tigers are kept in cages the size of a small bathroom. The Surabaya Zoo in Indonesia is considered the world's cruelest zoo. Here, a giraffe was found with plastic lining in her stomach. A tiger was fed meat laced with formaldehyde, and a lion was hanged in his enclosure. In addition to these horrific things, zoos are also unable to breed animals in captivity effectively. Zoos rely on a very limited gene pool from which to breed. Breeding an animal is often difficult to do, and while some species are more easily impregnated than others, the young of these animals tend to be unhealthy or die shortly after they are born. According to an article by Betsy Carpenter from the U.S. News and World Report, not all captive breeding aids in conservation, and many organisms are genetically weakened. Moreover, it is very difficult to release such animals back into their native origins. Both Dr. William Conway from the Wildlife Conservation Society and Dr. Dale Jameson from the University of Colorado agree that releasing captively bred animals into the wild is not even possible. Organisms that have only experienced life within a cage will be unable to cope with the natural environment because in a zoo, they are cared for and protected on a daily basis. In the wild, they have to defend themselves to find food, care for the animals around them, and be on their guard all the time against potential predators. So, what should be done about zoos then? Well, some people argue that zoos provide necessary education for the public and serve a role in saving exotic species. Others insist that the lives of the very creatures we cherish are worsened in confinement. Both sides need to compromise and work towards saving animals all across the world. This involves not only cherishing the creatures themselves, but also the environments that they live in. The director of the National Zoo, Michael Robinson, asserts that the only way to halt the destruction is to change people's attitudes. Zoos must evolve into institutions that teach people to treasure the natural world. We say we want to preserve these creatures, yet we destroy their habitats and confine them to artificial lives. Instead of relying on zoos, we need to become involved in the restoration of wild habitats, as well as the protection of the species there. One such recent initiative in the United States, for example, is the restoration of prairies and forests that have been destroyed by construction or fire by replanting grasses and trees. Instead of confining animals in small exhibits for our viewing pleasure, they should be allowed to live out their natural lives in habitats that are protected by local authorities. Additionally, the number of zoos should be greatly reduced or cut back to further the success of programs that protect animals in the wild. Think of it this way. Every year, the average zoo spends millions of dollars on its facilities and makes millions more when people walk through their gates. Almost 175 million people visit a zoo or aquarium every year. The San Diego Zoo, for example, spends $150 million per year. If this money were put towards habitat conservation and wild animal protection, the animal kingdom would greatly benefit. Overall, going to the zoo can be a fun experience, but we really need to examine the real motives for keeping animals in artificial environments. Going on a safari trip or watching realistic documentaries like African Cats or any of the multiple nature shows on television allows people to see these wild animals in their natural states instead of behind closed doors. Leaving animals in natural habitats, setting up sanctuaries where the animals are native to, and restoring habitats that have been destroyed are all plausible answers that will assist in saving as many species as possible. We all can make a difference in conserving resources and improving environmental habitats. If you are interested in becoming more involved in this worthwhile cause, check out the following organizations of the Wildlife Conservation Society, the Wildlife Alliance, or PAWS. These groups seek to conserve species in their native habitats. I encourage you to step out and support animals in this way. You never know how it could change our world for future generations of animals and people alike. Thank you.